This episode's proudly sponsored by Rattlesnake Cables. Rattlesnake Cables offer a wide variety of premium U.S. milled cables for the stage and studio, with diverse customization to fit your cable needs. They build dependability and style into your signal path. Rattlesnake Cables, the sound choice. Hey, the Rattlesnake team is giving you a chance to win 2 free cables. Just head over to rattlesnakecables.com/giveaway/Chris and Rick to enter. And our listeners save 20% on all regular priced items by using the code CR20. That's code CR20 to save 20%. Hey people, do you want to get your music into Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Tidal, and all the rest of the streaming services? Check out DistroKid. It's affordable and super easy to use. I've used it to distribute my music and I really dig it. Our listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/talkguitars. That's 30% off for our listeners at distrokid.com/talkguitars. Go get it. Hey everybody, it's Chris and Rick Talk Guitars. I recently went to the Fretboard Summit, which is put on by the Fretboard Journal, which is done by a guy named Jason Verlinde in Ballard, Washington. It was really cool. And just to give you a little background on this whole thing. So Fretboard Journal is a magazine. It's a print magazine dedicated to stringed instruments, but guitars mostly. And Jason does in-depth interviews, articles, beautiful photography, with luthiers, artists, you name it, people associated, amp makers, pedal makers, everybody associated with kind of the guitar music universe. And anyway, so every year he puts on a summit in Chicago at the, what is it called? The Old Town School of Folk Music. And it's a really cool facility, by the way. And so all these people converge on this venue, luthiers, techs, amp builders, pedal builders, and everybody just gets together and have this big, kumbaya about guitars and guitar world. And I went this year. It's a 3-day event. And, I thought I'd talk about it with Chris and, because I had such a good time. So first of all, it was my first time in Chicago, which I dug. I want to go back to Chicago. And Chris is from Michigan. And so it's right across the big lake. And you were saying you thought the vibe was pretty similar between Michigan and Chicago.
With my experience in Chicago, a lot of people migrated from Michigan to like East Lansing, where I'm from, to Chicago. So that might be part of it, but it was really low key, kind of the same laid back vibe. I really liked it. I was there a couple times, I think. My sister lived there for a while. So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I dug it. And the boroughs that we were in a place called Lincoln Center, I think, which is kind of a little, neighborhood within, I guess, the confines of Chicago. And that's where this took place. But it was just so much fun. It was, they had panel discussions with the famous luthiers we see in video, like TJ Thompson and Glazer and all these guys. And they're talking about fixing pre-war Martins and how to make it work and how to make it work financially. And then there were some artists that played too. I saw Colin Hay and Valerie June. Those were 2 highlights of the live performances that I really dug. But the thing I took away from it was just what a pleasant gathering it is, because, there was no competition between, guitar builders or amp builders. It was just kind of everybody was really interested in what the other person's doing and asking questions and having fun and playing their stuff. And so I just walked away from it just feeling like it was just such a cool community and a cool experience if you love guitars and you love this whole thing. And so I want to go back. So I might go back next year, but yeah, I wish you could have gone too, Chris, because I think you would have dug it. You get to see, it's overwhelming because there's a ton of things to do and see. So you just got to pick and choose. But, there's some beautiful, cool stuff being built out there and by some pretty interesting people. So
when you were talking about it to me, I kind of envisioned like the guitar shows, but I guess it's nothing like the guitar shows from listening to you talk further. Those In the beginning for me, those were fascinating. And then towards the end, they were like horrifying. It was very
Yes.
competitive, people just going nuts, running around,
Yes.
hard to get the good deals. I would definitely like to go to one of those. It's those people. I know a lot of those people, not personally, but I'm familiar with them through the Truth About Vintage Amplifiers
Yeah. Yeah.
Facebook page, and they're all super helpful, super cool. There's no bullies or nitwits or know-it-alls. So that I can imagine that that I think Fretboard Journal tends to attract those people, kind of more thoughtful people, which is totally cool. And that's probably why that was a cool event.
Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head. Exactly. I think the publication and the podcast that he does attract us, people that aren't like that. And exactly, that was the whole vibe was that way for this event, 3-day event. There was no competition. It was just like, hey, we're all in this together, essentially. And it's just cool to attend that and see that, because it just puts you at ease, right? And you can just take in the events and the panel discussions, and nobody claimed to be the authority, or I mean, there's a lot of humility within that community, which is really cool to see too, because there's a lot of heavy hitters. I mean, TJ Thompson, for one, is like the guy that works on Martins. Like, if you have a Martin that's worth $100,000 or a couple $100,000, he's the guy you want to fix it if it needs to be fixed. And a couple other takeaways. I met Barry Gresbeck of Grez Guitars. I'm a big fan of his because he makes guitars out
cool.
of, the reclaimed redwood. He's such a cool guy, man. He's got he also does audio design for like buildings, like schools and big facilities. And I think he and his partner did like one of the Olympics or something, like the Olympic facilities, and did audio design for these things. So it was really cool to meet him. And I hung out with him a little bit and had coffee with him. And then, went up to his area and looked at his guitars, and they're beautiful guitars. And just gorgeous.
I like his aesthetic, and I don't, I'm like really happy with all the classics. I'm one of those guys that's just like, yeah, whatever. But his kind of speak to me. I mean, he doesn't just like, take a Stratocaster and put a telly neck on it or use something like that, or like the offsets that are just kind of like whatever. They kind of harken to like some classic 50s designs, and they're really beautiful woods and stuff. So I definitely dig his stuff. It seems pretty cool, and they seem pretty reasonable too.
Yeah, and that's his whole deal. Is his main model, the Mendocino. He wanted to make a guitar that he could easily replicate over and over and over again, but make a great guitar. They're chambered guitars, right? They're so semi-hollow body. And they're, like you said, that's what I'm attracted to as well, is he's very thoughtful about what he's doing. And he doesn't want to just make guitars that are, a Telly, another version of a Telly or a Strat or whatever. He's put his own spin on these guitars, and it shows. And I think he's getting some traction, because, I've been seeing more and more of him in publications or online. And yeah, he's a great guy. And he gets, like I said, he gets this reclaimed redwood and makes these beautiful guitars. He's venturing now into arch tops, which is cool.
Oh,
Small
nice.
bodied arch tops. Yeah. And I saw that at the show, and it's beautiful. Super cool guitar. So yeah.
Were there like effects builders there too? Yeah, you mentioned JHS was there. Were there other
he was
ones?
there. Yeah, there were. And I wish I could remember the names, and maybe I'll post some of the names, look back at the schedule at the Fretboard, because I told you about that one. His name is escaping me, but he's a super cool dude, and he builds these guitars, and he built that crazy B-bendery kind of thing that I was telling you about, where you put your palm on it and you can manipulate the volume and kind of get these swells, kind of like a B-bender or something. That was kind of cool. And he was a super cool guy. You could tell he was just one of those guys that wants to try just weird, crazy stuff and see what happens. And so he was there, and JHS guy was there. I wish I'd spent more time there. I went to the booth where they were and checked out the pedals, but mainly I just kind of wandered through. I didn't stop really at anybody's booth for a long time. Barry's, I stopped by because I kind of met him before. And it was so cool to meet him in person and chat with him. He's such an approachable guy. And he's, like I said, he's got a lot of cred in terms of, audio. Like, I guess he's voicing the backs of the arch tops in some crazy way that mimics some speaker. I don't know. It's beyond me. But anyway, yeah, he's the real deal. So I saw him. Oh, and then they had a really cool panel discussion with mostly next gen retail people. And Trevor Boone, of course, our buddy, was on the panel. And I think the woman is taking over for her father at Elderly Instruments. I believe that's what it is. She was there. and some other people were there too from other retailers. And it was really interesting to hear them talk about the vintage market and what they see, happening in the future or the near future. It was really cool. And it was just cool to see that kind of the baton is being passed to a younger generation with these cool shops, that we know and we care about. So
Elderly was there. That's cool. That's a great store. I used to live really close to them, and I used to go there every week and kind of look around. It would have been the mid 80s to the late 80s. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in that place.
They did have another panel where Tyler Geske, the lead tech at Emerald City Guitars, was on that. It was kind of a cool panel because the person moderating was kind of taking a different tack rather than just, oh, what's your toughest project you've worked on or blah, blah, blah. Kind of, he was trying to get at like their mindset about what got them into it and kind of maybe more of their personalities, which was really kind of cool. Like Tyler he was kind of half joking, but he said, well, I had no other choice. Like this, my personality is such, and I felt like this was really the only path I could take. And that sentiment, I think, was echoed by other members of the panel too, which was kind of neat. But it was kind of neat to just get them to talk about themselves a little bit as people and what makes them tick rather than just nuts and bolts of repair or, luthery, right? So that was kind of cool.
What was the coolest thing that you saw there? If there was one thing that really just jumped out at you, like that kind of blew your mind, was there anything like that there?
Well, I will say the Colin Hay performance was that for me because I didn't expect it. Because, he's the singer from Men at Work, right?
Right.
In the 80s. But after that, he still has a solo career.
Right.
And his songwriting is just amazing. And he played 2 Collings guitars, going back and forth between them. And I was just taken by, his storytelling. He's funny. He's a funny guy. The songs were just amazing. So it made me, when I got home, it made me kind of revisit his material, and get better acquainted with it because I was just so blown away by his live performance. So I think that really stood out to me, kind of taking that performance away and just kind of because it was such a surprise. I was kind of a fan of Men at Work when they came out. They had hits and stuff and they were a cool band but I had no idea the depth of his songwriting ability, and his voice is just beautiful. And the arrangements he comes up with too, being a solo performer, I was really impressed with, right? Because a lot of people can do the solo performance with a guitar and a voice. And, it's cool if you're just strumming, but he took the time to kind of make these arrangements really work in that context, which I really appreciate.
You went to the Wilco Loft too, didn't you?
Oh, dude, yeah.
Tell us about that.
It was insane. I think the guy's name is Mark. He was such a sweet guy. And Trevor, I met up with Trevor and the gang, Trevor and Tyler from Emerald City Guitars and Ken. And he said, yeah, do you want to go to the Wilco Loft? And I said, yeah, like, why wouldn't I want to go? And it's just cool. They've got tons of gear, kind of a studio set up in there in this nondescript building in Chicago. And it's just, for guys like us, being in a room like that is just the best. Like I was telling them, if that was my loft, I would never leave it. I'd be eating cereal, getting stoned, playing every piece of gear all day long.
And those guys like some weird, cool guitars and stuff too. So it'd be like kind of like a little museum of freaky guitars.
Oh, dude, totally. Well, I showed you, I don't know if you saw that, but he was telling us his newest acquisition was a PV, I forget the model, but it's the PV double cutaway that you and I know from the 70s, right? The guitar.
Right.
And it was a Sunburst.
P60? P60
I think so. I think so. But it was so cool. And yeah, he had other pieces in there that were appealed to me exactly because you and I both kind of like weird guitars, but he had just tons of cool stuff in there, and it was such a treat. And I thank Trevor and I thank Mark, the guy that showed us around. He was such a sweet guy. Yeah, and I was like, oh, can I take pictures? And he goes, yeah, but just don't. I'm not going to circulate them around. But I know you're a big Wilco fan, and I wanted to send you pictures because I know you'd get a kick out of it. And it was just cool. I guess that was another cool takeaway from that trip is just that being able to get that inside tour of the Wilco facility. It was super cool.
You saw Lake Michigan. Was that the first time you ever seen a big lake?
Oh man, yes. And it's like it's crazy. You know this. It's like an ocean because you can't see the other side.
Right.
And yeah, it was kind of. I was kind of taken aback. It was really cool. It was a beautiful day. It was hot. And I just walked there from where I was staying. It was about maybe a 20-minute walk. And I'm so glad I did because they had a beautiful park there, Montrose Park, Space Station number 5, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, these huge sandy beaches that were really deep, like you were saying, like it was just this huge deep beach that went on for a mile or a couple
Right.
miles. And then boom, there's the lake, and it's just crazy. I wish I'd taken a swim, but I didn't bring any swim stuff with me. I was really debating on whether or not to go get a swimsuit and a towel, but I didn't end up doing it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. It was cool to
Some
see.
summers, some summers it gets really, really warm too.
Oh
And the
man.
thing I like, reason I asked is I always liked being with people when they saw like Lake Michigan or one of the big lakes for the first time. They're like, "Holy shit, this is a lake!"
Dude.
Yeah, it's like an ocean with no sharks, no jellyfish, with like this white sand, miles of white sand, and and very warm sometimes. It's like the perfect place to swim.
I wish you would have come. I kept thinking about you, man, the whole time I was there. It's like, damn, I wish Chris was here. We'd have such a blast. And you would have dug. And okay, another segue. We went to this really cool guitar shop called Rock and Roll Guitars. Shout out to them. And it was really cool. You know, you and I have seen a bunch of guitar shops in our lifetime, and when we travel, we always try to find guitar shops, but most of them are kind of like in a strip mall or something with white walls and no vibe at all. This was a really cool vibe. It was really reminiscent to me of Emerald City Guitars, which I love. Their building is really cool, hardwood floors. So the same thing, like it was a brick building, these big glass cases with all kinds of stuff in them, pedals and stuff, and old wood and wood floors. And the person that owns the joint really curates cool stuff. There was no shortage of cool gear to look at and check out. It was really fun. I had such a good time.
I haven't been to a music shop outside of the ones here, which I haven't been to in years either. Yeah, I don't remember the last time I went to on a trip. Like I've been in Nashville a few times, and I've been to LA. I've been to Groons once, and that was awesome. But you didn't go to Chicago Music Exchange, did
We
you?
were going to, but we just didn't. Yeah, we just didn't have the time. But that was definitely one of our stops, and we talked about going there. But we got sidetracked with this rock and roll guitars.
Did you see Joe
Go ahead.
outside of the event? Didn't you say you were going to see somebody like a performer?
No, well, another performer at the venue was named Valerie June,
Okay.
and she was amazing too, like a blues artist, contemporary blues artist, and she plays banjo and guitar, and she is amazing. I highly recommend her too. She was great. Like she read poetry between her songs and told stories too. I mean, I also saw a guy named Joe Henry, which I thought was super cool too. He's kind of how do I classify him? I guess singer songwriter blues kind of, but
I'm familiar with
he
the name, but
a lot of open tunings. Yeah. And he's done a lot of stuff. He produces too. He's worked with T-Bone Burnett, Elvis Costello, Joan Baez, all kinds of people. So, he was also did a little discussion with a guy named Blake Mills, who's another artist and producer. And that was a really cool panel too, because they talked about how, they produce artists and things like that, which was really cool. It was really cool to hear their take on producing artists and their mindset when it comes to doing that. So yeah, I did not see performance outside of that
okay.
of the thing. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said you were going to go see this dude. He was that acoustic or that instrumentalist
G.
guy.
Weller. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
supposed to be there, but he wasn't there. And I was actually in the other building watching Colin Hay actually when G. Weller was supposed to be in the other building, but he wasn't. I don't think he was. I don't know. I still don't know the full story on that. This mystery keeps getting thicker and thicker, but
Intrigue.
yeah. But I was bummed because I wanted to see G. Weller, but yeah, apparently he didn't show. So I still have to get to the bottom of that.
Was there another? You mentioned the device that does like volume swells that you put on the guitar. Were there any other like inventions or new technology or something that people were kind of presenting? I'm just kind of curious what's out there. What are people like kind of looking to do with guitar?
Yeah. There was another cool pedal place. Gosh darn it, I can't remember their name, but they were really cool. And they had a bunch of different pedals that did all kind. It was kind of more along the lines of Zvex. You remember Zvex
Yeah.
effects where they'd make things that do crazy things.
Right.
So it was kind of like that. And I guess they're from the same area that the Zvex guys from too. But they were cool. But no, I mean overall it was just a bunch of luthiers making beautiful acoustic guitars, gorgeous. And then like I was saying, like electric guitars being made too by like people like Barry Gresbick and other people. But like I said, it was so overwhelming for me. Like I kind of just wandered around with my eyes glazed over, and stopped here and there to see, what might catch my eye. But no, I don't really remember hearing anything about like super innovation or, yeah. I think the guy I talked to, like that was doing that B bender thing, was probably the most, he was trying to, live on the cutting edge in terms of implement some kind of weird apparatus that might work with, to try to emulate a B bender or something like that, or a pedal steel or something like that, I guess.
Right. I'm always curious because a lot of stuff that comes up, there's been so much shit made that
Oh
now
yeah.
there's a lot of like, here's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. A lot of that
Right.
stuff. But I'm always interested because sometimes, something really cool comes out. Those places like that, what's really good to do is you go in there with a giant belt buckle and you just walk around and say, can I play
Can I
that?
play
Can I play that? Yeah. And have like a Starbucks coffee that's kind of spilling out all over the
Exactly.
place.
Yeah, with
They
metal
appreciate that.
buttons. Yeah,
Yeah,
metal buttons.
exactly.
I will say, like every time I hear a manufacturer or a builder talk about like making a lot of guitars, you know what I mean, like annually or whatever, I always wonder like how many guitars can be made and how many people out there, you know what I mean? Like I wonder about the like, these companies, especially like Gibson or Fender. It's like, yeah, we want to ramp up. It's like, what the fuck? How many more guitars can you sell? And
Yeah.
how many guitars are out there just like not being played or I don't know. It's so I really appreciate like builders, small builders who just say, yeah, I build like 20 guitars a year or 10 guitars a year. And
Right.
I devote myself to quality over quantity. Because at this point, there's so many luthiers and builders of all kinds of things. It's like how much of this stuff can we consume? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. If you did the math, it probably comes out to everybody in the world owns five guitars.
Totally.
I mean, but people keeps like, I mean, there's money in it still. I mean, there's always those times that pop up when we say the electric guitar is dead. It's, pretty
Right.
soon. And there's that thing that we talked about and talk about sometimes that as soon as the old, the boomers die, no one's going to care about vintage guitars, which I don't believe at all.
Yeah.
It might drop a little bit, but there's crazy young kids that are into this stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
I'm hoping and thinking it'll go for a long time.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that sentiment was kind of echoed by the young, the young retailers taking over from their parents, as they were saying, yeah, we get a lot of young people coming in wanting to play the vintage stuff or being hip to it, and I can attest to the fact that when I've been down at the shop, a lot of the young bands that come in there that are in their 20s just go ape over vintage Fender stuff and Gibson stuff and Gretches and Martins, everything. So I'm hoping that too. But the sheer volume of stuff being made, especially by the big manufacturers, right? Like
Right.
Martin and Gibson and Fender, like they're pumping stuff out, or even PRS. They're pumping stuff out at such a volume. It's like, I'm like you say, I guess, they're looking at the numbers and they're selling stuff, but I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy to me. Like that, it wouldn't just flatten out at a certain point. It's like, yeah, like you say, like everybody's got five guitars and three amps and a shit ton of pedals. We're good.
Right.
But maybe it's also just the grass is always greener, right? It's like, oh man, I've got
Oh yeah.
this, but I want that thing, or I don't know.
No, I mean they bank on that. People have gas and they go through. I
Yeah,
haven't had a guitar in a while. I'm about due, and they'll go looking for them. Me, I don't. I think maybe I only probably bought one new guitar in my life. I always
yeah,
buy used shit,
yeah,
so I wouldn't even look for something new. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's it's weird, and there's people like that too. That's all they want. And I guess it depends on where you are. If you don't have access to used and vintage stuff, it's like
that's
you
true.
kind of gotta kind of buy. Well, you got reverb that you can kind of roll the dice and see.
Yeah,
I bought a guitar of reverb and it was all right. So
yeah, I have too, actually.
it sounds like a good time. It sounds like it would be a little bit more fulfilling than going to like another guitar show
Oh,
where.
dude, totally. And that's what I think. I had a conversation with several people there too, and that was the distinction. People who talked about, NAMM or guitar shows or other events kind of ruefully, right? Like, oh yeah, Jesus Christ, I'll never go to NAMM again. And this was totally different. I mean, I've only been to a couple guitar shows, but they were pretty dismal. Like one in South Seattle, where you're meandering through these folding tables full of old, vintage knobs that some guy wants to sell you, or a pick guard from a real pick guard,
Right.
you know, and not to disparage all these guitar shows. There's some cool ones out there, but the vibe wasn't even like that these people were desperate to sell you something. It was just They just wanted to engage you in conversation, man. And I talked to a bunch of cool people that build guitars and build pedals, and it was just really cool because I never got the feeling that they were desperate to sell me something, you know?
Right.
And it was
Right.
really cool.
It's a big meet and greet. It's like a family, the Fretboard Journal family reunion or whatever.
Totally.
All these people. So
Yeah.
that's cool. I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
like it was a good time.
It was. Yeah. So my hat's off to Jason Verlinde. Shout out to you. And the staff at that facility, the Old Town School of Folk Music, was so cool because that's a vibrant facility. They have stuff there all the time. They teach classes, they have live events all the time. And all the people that worked there and volunteered there were so cool. Just really cool people.
Sweet. They sell food. They have burritos, nachos, anything.
No nachos. Well, yeah, they catered some lunch, and they
Sweet.
I want to try to drag you out there some by hook or by crook. Maybe it's got to be a write-off, right? We're making such bank on our podcast, we could write it off.
I'm gonna wait till we get our jet, and then I'll go. So I don't have to fly a commercial.
That's a shrewd move, man. Yeah, anyway, I can't say enough about it. I was really surprised. I didn't know what to expect, because I was going back and forth whether or not to go. It's like, okay, it's going to be a little chunk of change, right? With, getting an Airbnb and the flight and the whole bit. But I'm so glad I did. I'm just really glad I did. And it was cool to have, Trevor and the crew out there too, because we got to hang out and have some meals together and go on those adventures, right? At the guitar shop and the Wilco Loft. It was super fun.
Sweet. Did they make a traveling road movie like
they did, man? They did.
Cool.
He's been Ken's Ken's trailing. It was so fun because just watching that, watching.
Oh, cool. I'll look for that.
You should, man.
I love those things.
Yeah, me too. And actually, the one of the VPs for Gibson gave a really cool talk on the tie-in between Chicago and Gibson, in the early 1900s. And that was really cool, actually.
That would be super cool.
It was cool. Yeah, because he talked about, that, and not only Gibson, but I think just guitars. And because he talked about, Chicago, as you know, being like the epicenter for like catalog sales, right? Back in like
that's
Sears.
Kay and Harmony and all those.
Yeah, because Sears, Montgomery Ward, those were all based in Chicago and they were selling guitars. Yeah. And
do they have like media? They have slides or anything?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had slides.
Cool.
It was super cool because he was showing us like these rough drawings that somebody at Gibson made of like headstocks and stuff, and these ideas they wanted to do to shake things up. It was really cool, and he was cool because I'll try to put some information on our site or somehow so that the people can have more context about who these people are, because their names escape me, but he's cool because he's about Trevor's age. I think he's a young guy, but he's super geeky about guitars. And he was telling us, the people running Gibson now, he goes, bring me the geeks. I want the geeks. And so all these, guitar geeks now are working at Gibson. I hope that's a good sign, but he seemed like a really cool dude. And he loves the brand. He loves the whole lore. He went at the guitar shop, actually, I think he bought like an old 60-something Epiphone single cut. That was a really cool guitar.
Nice.
But so that was it. I want to go back. Chicago is such a cool town. I did a lot of walking around, and obviously the train is kind of romantic, clickety clacks through the town and above the streets and stuff. Just all the brick buildings and the cool little walk ups and stuff that you don't see out here out on the west coast. And the architecture's different. The whole vibe's different. I really dug it.
Good look, good town.
Man, a few words. Well, anyway, that was my adventure. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. We're still part of the Ruinous Media Network. Listen to us wherever you consume podcasts, and ping us online, man. Shoot us a question or throw a spitball at us. We want some kind of interaction with you people out there. We want to hear you breathe. What do you got, Chris?
Not much. It's just, I'm taking it all in. I feel like I've kind of been to Chicago now. It brought back all these memories. So
nice.
Thanks for that little travelogue.
Nice.